Some fathers teach their children how to ride bikes. Others show them how to throw a baseball.
But what do you do when you're a father who spent 20 years learning how to kill silently in the darkness, and now the darkness has found your family? Marcus Ghost. Sullivan thought he had left the blood and shadows behind when he hung up his Navy SEAL trident 3 years ago. He traded his assault rifle for a toolbox, his tactical gear for work boots, and his code name for simply being dad to 8-year-old Emma. The small mountain town of Pine Ridge, Colorado seemed like the perfect place to disappear from a world that had demanded everything from him. But some ghosts never stay buried. When 3 black SUVs rolled into Pine Ridge on a Tuesday morning that started like any other, Marcus didn't know that his past was about to collide with his present in the most violent way possible. He didn't know that the cartel he had crossed paths with during a classified mission in South America had spent 3 years tracking him down. And he certainly didn't know that by sunset he would be the only thing standing between his daughter and men who viewed killing as just another Tuesday. The quiet carpenter who coached Little League on weekends was about to remember why his enemies once whispered his name in fear. Because when you threaten a SEAL's family, you don't just wake a sleeping warrior, you unleash a force of nature that will move heaven and earth to protect what he loves most. This is the story of one father's last stand, where the skills that once made him a ghost in the night would determine whether his daughter would see another sunrise. The morning sun cast long shadows through the workshop windows, as Marcus Sullivan ran his calloused hands along the smooth oak surface of the dining table he had been crafting for the Hendersons. 3 months of careful work had gone into every joint, every curve, every detail that would make this piece something special for their 50th anniversary. The smell of wood shavings and linseed oil filled the air, mixing with the aroma of coffee from the mug Emma had brought him earlier. Decorated with her crayon drawing of the two of them fishing. Pine Ridge, Colorado, population 3,847, had been their home for 3 years now. Marcus had chosen this place specifically for its remoteness, nestled in a valley between towering peaks that seemed to touch the sky. The nearest major highway was 45 minutes of winding mountain roads away, and the closest thing to excitement was usually the annual Harvest Festival, or when old Bill Morrison's cattle got loose again. It was exactly the kind of place where a retired Navy SEAL could disappear and just be a dad. Marcus paused in his work, listening to the familiar sounds of his morning routine. Emma's laughter carried from the kitchen where she was getting ready for school, probably trying to convince their neighbor, Mrs. Chen, to let her have cookies for breakfast again. Mrs. Chen had been watching Emma in the mornings since Marcus started his carpentry business, and she had quickly become like the grandmother Emma had never known. The workshop door creaked open, and Emma bounced in, her backpack slung over one shoulder and her blonde hair still slightly messy despite Mrs. Chen's best efforts. At 8 years old, she had her mother's bright blue eyes and stubborn streak, though she had inherited Marcus's ability to move quietly when she wanted to sneak up on him. "Dad, Mrs. Chen says you need to eat breakfast too," Emma announced, holding up a plate with scrambled eggs and toast. She said big, strong carpenters need fuel for their muscles. Marcus smiled, setting down his plane and wiping his hands on his work apron. "Mrs. Chen is a wise woman. What do you think of the table?" Emma circled the piece, running her small fingers along the edge with the reverence of someone who had grown up around handcrafted furniture. Marcus had taught her to appreciate the work that went into creating something beautiful and lasting, just as his own father had taught him before everything changed. "It's really pretty, Dad. The wood has those swirly patterns that look like clouds." She looked up at him with those serious blue eyes that sometimes made her seem older than her years. "Do you think Mrs. Henderson will cry when she sees it?" "Happy tears," Marcus assured her, accepting the plate and taking a bite of eggs. "Sometimes when something means a lot to us, we cry because we're happy." Emma nodded solemnly, as if filing away this piece of adult wisdom for future reference. "Like when you first saw this workshop and got that weird look on your face?" Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. 3 years ago, when they had first walked through this old barn on the property they were renting, Emma had watched him run his hands over the workbenches left behind by the previous owner. She was right. He had gotten emotional seeing the space where he could build something instead of destroy, where he could create instead of eliminate targets.
"Exactly like that, sweetheart."
The sound of a car horn outside interrupted their moment. Emma grabbed her backpack and stood on her tiptoes to kiss his cheek.
"That's Mrs. Rodriguez. She's driving carpool today because her minivan has the good DVD player. Have a good day at school. Remember what we practiced about the math test? Take my time, read the questions twice, and show my work," Emma recited dutifully. "And if I get stuck, take 3 deep breaths and think about what you taught me." Marcus watched her run toward the door, then called out, Emma? She turned back, already halfway out the workshop.
I love you, kiddo. Her grin could have powered the entire town. Love you too, Dad. Don't inhale too much wood dust while I'm gone.
After her footsteps faded and he heard the car pull away, Marcus returned to his work but found himself unable to concentrate. Something felt different about the morning, though. He couldn't put his finger on what.
3 years of civilian life had softened some of his edge, but the instincts developed over 20 years of special operations didn't just disappear. They sat in the back of his mind like a quiet alarm system, usually dormant but always ready. He walked to the workshop's large window that faced the main road leading into Pine Ridge. From here, he could see most of the town spread out below. The main street with its handful of shops, the school where Emma spent her days, the fire station where volunteers gathered for coffee and gossip. It was a view that usually brought him peace, but today something nagged at him. A black SUV with tinted windows sat parked across from the post office. Engine running.
Marcus had noticed it yesterday too, and the day before that. In a town where everyone knew everyone else's vehicle, strangers tended to stand out.
The SUV was clean, expensive, and out of place among the pickup trucks and sensible sedans that made up Pine Ridge's usual traffic. Marcus set down his coffee and moved to a different window, one that gave him a better angle on the vehicle.
From this position, he could see there were at least 2 people inside, and they seemed to be watching the main street. Watching and waiting. The familiar weight of hypervigilance settled over him like a heavy coat. He hadn't felt this particular sensation in 3 years, but his body remembered it perfectly. The way his breathing became more controlled. How his vision sharpened. The way his mind began automatically cataloging exits and potential weapons. It was like muscle memory for violence, and it terrified him because it felt so natural. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Forgot to tell you, Mrs.
Patterson wants to know if you can fix her front porch steps. Love you. Marcus smiled despite his growing unease.
Emma had become his unofficial business manager, always listening for neighbors who needed repairs or custom work. She had probably heard Mrs. Sarah. Patterson mentioned it at the grocery store and filed it away in her mental notebook of ways to help her dad's business grow. He was typing a response when he noticed the second SUV. This one was parked near the gas station at the other end of town, positioned with a clear view of both the main road and the turnoff that led to the residential area where Marcus and Emma lived. Same make and model as the first vehicle, same tinted windows, same sense of watchful waiting. Marcus's fingers stilled over his phone screen. 2 vehicles in position to monitor the town's main entry and exit points wasn't a coincidence.
In his former life, he would have called it establishing a perimeter. His mind automatically began running tactical assessments, sightlines, escape routes, civilian populations at risk.
He forced himself to breathe slowly and think rationally. Maybe they were federal agents investigating something. Maybe they were private investigators working a case. Maybe they were just lost tourists with expensive taste in rental cars who happened to be taking their time figuring out where to go next. But even as he tried to convince himself there were innocent explanations, his body was already moving into what his old teammates would have called condition orange, relaxed alertness with heightened awareness. He found himself checking the position of his keys, mentally cataloging which tools could serve as weapons, and calculating how long it would take him to reach Emma's school. The third SUV changed everything. Marcus spotted it through the workshop's side window, creeping slowly up the gravel road that led to his property. It was moving deliberately, almost cautiously, as if the driver was studying the terrain. The vehicle stopped about 300 yards from his workshop, partially hidden behind a stand of pine trees. 3 vehicles, 3 points of observation covering the town and his home. That wasn't surveillance, that was preparation for an operation. Marcus's training took over completely. He moved away from the windows, staying low and using the workshop's interior structure for concealment. His mind raced through possibilities. Who had found him? How had they tracked him to Pine Ridge? And most importantly, how much danger was Emma in? He pulled out his phone and called the school. Pine Ridge Elementary, this is Sarah, came the familiar voice of the secretary. Sarah, this is Marcus Sullivan. I need to speak with Emma's teacher right away. It's urgent. Oh, hi, Marcus. Is everything okay? Emma's in math class right now, but I can... Sarah, I need you to listen carefully. Do not let Emma leave the school building today. Do not let her go outside for recess. Do not let her leave with anyone except me, and if anyone calls claiming to be a relative or family friend, do not believe them. Can you do that for me? The concern in Sarah's voice was immediate. Marcus, you're scaring me.
What's going on?
I can't explain right now, but Emma could be in danger.
Please, just keep her inside and safe until I can get there. I'm calling Sheriff Martinez right now. Of course, but Marcus, I have to go. Thank you, Sarah. Marcus ended the call and immediately dialed the sheriff's office. Tom Martinez had been Pine Ridge's sheriff for 15 years and had become a good friend over the past 3 years. He was competent, experienced, and most importantly, he was the only law enforcement within 30 minutes of town. Sheriff's office. Diane, it's Marcus Sullivan. I need to speak with Tom immediately. He's out on patrol, but I can radio him. What's the emergency? Tell him there are 3 suspicious vehicles conducting surveillance on the town. Black SUVs with tinted windows. Tell him I think we have a serious situation developing. Marcus, you sound really rattled. Are you sure, Diane? I need you to trust me on this. I have experience with this kind of thing.
Get Tom back to town now and tell him to approach carefully. These people might be armed and dangerous.
Marcus could hear Diane's radio crackling as she tried to raise the sheriff. He ended the call and immediately began moving through his workshop, his mind shifting into tactical mode. If someone had found him after 3 years, they weren't here for a friendly conversation. The elaborate surveillance setup suggested they knew exactly who he was and what he was capable of. He opened a cabinet that looked like any other storage space, but contained items that definitely didn't belong in a carpenter's workshop. Inside was a lockbox that held his service pistol, a Sig Sauer P226 that had been with him through 6 deployments. Next to it was a satellite phone that could reach anywhere in the world, a device he had hoped never to need again. Marcus checked the pistol's magazine, chambered a round, and secured the weapon in his waistband. The familiar weight was both comforting and terrifying. He had spent 3 years trying to forget the man who carried this gun. But now that man might be the only thing that could protect Emma.
The satellite phone took 30 seconds to acquire a signal. Then Marcus dialed a number he knew by heart but hadn't called in 3 years. This is Reynolds. Bill, it's Ghost.
Silence on the other end lasted exactly 3 seconds. Jesus Christ, Marcus. Where are you calling from? I'm burned, Bill. Someone found me. They've got 3 vehicles positioned around my town, and I don't know what they're planning, but it's not a social call. Commander Bill Reynolds had been Marcus's commanding officer for the last 5 years of his SEAL career. He was one of only 4 people who knew Marcus's real location, and the only one still active duty. How sure are you about this? Professional surveillance, multiple vehicles, coordinated positioning.
Someone with serious resources wants me bad enough to track me to the middle of nowhere. Marcus moved to another window, checking the position of the nearest SUV.
Bill, my daughter is at school in town. If these people are who I think they are, the Medellin contract, it wasn't a question.
3 years ago, Marcus's final mission had involved infiltrating a cartel operation in Colombia. The mission had gone sideways and Marcus had been forced to eliminate several high-value targets to extract his team.
The cartel had put a bounty on El Fantasma, the Ghost, but military intelligence had assured him the threat was neutralized when they took down the cartel's leadership 6 months later. Apparently, military intelligence had been wrong.
I need immediate extraction for me and my daughter, Marcus said, and I need backup. If they found me here, they know I have family. Marcus, you've been out for 3 years. I can't just... Bill. Marcus's voice carried the quiet authority that had once commanded respect in the most dangerous places on Earth. These people tortured and killed anyone who helped us in Colombia. They burned down entire villages looking for information. If they're here, they didn't come to talk. Another pause. Give me your coordinates. I'll see what I can do, but it's going to take time. Can you hold position? Marcus looked out at his workshop, then toward the town where his daughter was sitting in math class, probably wondering why her dad had sounded so worried on the phone. I don't have a choice. Ghost, listen to me. If this is Medellin, if they've really found you, then running isn't going to solve the problem. They'll follow you anywhere, and next time, you might not see them coming. Marcus knew Bill was right, but the thought of putting Emma in danger made his stomach clench. What are you suggesting?
You know what I'm suggesting.
You're one of the best we ever had. If they want to finish this, maybe it's time to let them try. The line went quiet except for the satellite's faint static. Marcus understood what his old commander was telling him. Running would only delay the inevitable. These people had spent 3 years finding him, and they wouldn't give up now. But fighting meant risking everything he had built in Pine Ridge, everything that mattered more than his own life. I need 6 hours to get Emma somewhere safe. You've got it.
I'm making calls now? Ghost? Yeah? Good luck.
Marcus ended the call and stood in his workshop, surrounded by the tools and projects that represented the life he had built after war.
The half-finished dining table seemed to mock him now, a symbol of the peace he had thought he could find by simply walking away from violence. Outside, the black SUV had moved closer to his property, no longer bothering with concealment. They knew he had spotted them, and they didn't care. That told him everything he needed to know about their intentions and their timeline. Marcus picked up his coffee mug, the one Emma had decorated with her drawing, and looked at the cheerful crayon figures of a father and daughter fishing together.
He had promised Emma they would go fishing this weekend, just the two of them at the lake where she could practice casting her line and he could pretend to be nothing more than a dad who worked with his hands. The mug slipped from his fingers and shattered on the concrete floor, coffee spreading in a dark stain among the wood shavings.
The ghost was about to wake up, and Pine Ridge would never be the same. Marcus moved through his workshop with the fluid efficiency of someone whose life had once depended on split-second decisions.
Every motion had purpose. Every action calculated to maximize his chances of getting Emma to safety. The comfortable father and carpenter was rapidly being replaced by the tactical operator who had earned his reputation in the darkest corners of the world. He opened another hidden compartment, this one concealed behind a falseback in his tool cabinet. Inside was gear he had hoped never to touch again. Tactical vest, night vision goggles, communications equipment, and enough ammunition to hold off a small army.
At the bottom of the cache was a go bag containing cash, false identification documents, and emergency contact information for people who could help him disappear completely. But disappearing wasn't an option anymore.
Not when they knew about Emma. Marcus strapped on the tactical vest and checked his equipment with mechanical precision.
The familiar ritual of preparation was both calming and terrifying, like slipping into a skin he had tried to shed 3 years ago. His hands moved without conscious thought, checking magazine levels, testing radio frequencies, ensuring every piece of gear was functional and ready. The satellite phone buzzed with an incoming call. "Reynolds, talk to me, Bill. I've got eyes on your location via satellite. 3 vehicles just like you said. We're tracking at least 8 hostiles, possibly more. They're equipped for a serious operation, body armor, automatic weapons, the whole package." Marcus felt his blood chill. 8 men against 1 target?
That's not an arrest squad, that's an execution team. It gets worse.
We intercepted some chatter on encrypted channels. They're not just here for you, Marcus.
They want the whole package. You, your daughter, and anyone who might have information about your location. They're planning to send a message.
The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. Emma wasn't just collateral damage in their plan. She was part of the target. They wanted to make his death as painful as possible before killing him, and they knew exactly how to do that. How long do I have? Satellite shows them moving into final positions now. Best guess is they'll make their move within the hour, probably sooner. They're not being subtle anymore. Marcus looked toward town, calculating distances and timing. "Can you get back up here? Closest military assets are 4 hours out." Marcus understood. Sheriff Martinez was a good man with 15 years of experience dealing with drunk tourists and domestic disputes. He wasn't equipped to handle a paramilitary assault by trained killers who had come here specifically to torture a Navy SEAL's family. What about extraction for Emma? Same timeline problem.
Even if I could get a helicopter in the air right now, it wouldn't reach you before they make their move.
Marcus closed his eyes and felt the weight of 3 years of peaceful civilian life crushing down on him.
He had built a perfect life for Emma in Pine Ridge, far from the violence that had defined his adult existence. Now that violence had found them anyway, and the only way to protect her was to become the very thing he had tried to leave behind. "Bill, I need you to do something for me. Name it. If this goes wrong, if something happens to me." Emma has an aunt in San Diego named Jennifer Morrison. She's a good woman, stable job, no connection to any of this. The details are in my file. Emma doesn't know about her, but Jennifer agreed to be her guardian if anything ever happened to me. Marcus, you're talking like... I'm talking like a father who needs to make sure his daughter has a future. Marcus checked his watch. "I'm going to get Emma and try to reach the extraction point on Highway 9, about 15 miles north of here. It's defensible terrain with good sight lines. If your people can meet us there, they'll be there, whatever it takes." Marcus ended the call and took one last look around his workshop. 3 years of work, of building something beautiful and meaningful with his hands, of creating a life that had nothing to do with killing. The half-finished dining table stood like a monument to everything he was about to lose. He grabbed a crowbar from his workbench and smashed the workshop's electrical panel, plunging the building into darkness. If they had thermal imaging equipment,
He didn't want to make their job any easier. Then he moved to the window facing the road and studied the tactical situation. The SUV that had been approaching his property was now parked at the base of his driveway, about 200 yards away. Through his binoculars, Marcus could see at least 2 armed figures moving through the tree line on either side of his property. They were professional, disciplined, and taking their time to set up properly. But they were also making a crucial mistake. They were treating this like a standard target elimination, assuming Marcus was just another middle-aged civilian who happened to have the wrong enemies. They had no idea they were hunting someone who had spent 20 years perfecting the art of violence in the world's most dangerous places. Marcus slipped out the back of his workshop and began moving through the forest that bordered his property. The terrain was familiar. He had walked these trails countless times with Emma, teaching her to identify animal tracks and edible plants. Now he used that knowledge to move silently through the underbrush, circling around behind the assault team's position. The first operative was positioned behind a large pine tree, about 50 yards from the workshop, scanning the building through a high-powered scope. He was wearing full tactical gear and carrying an assault rifle, but his positioning revealed a fatal flaw. He was focused entirely on the workshop, assuming his target was still inside. Marcus approached from the man's blind spot, moving with the absolute silence that had made him legendary among his peers. 20 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet, the operative never heard him coming. The kill was quick and silent, a precise application of pressure to the carotid artery that rendered the man unconscious in seconds. Marcus caught the body before it could fall and make noise, then quickly stripped the man of his radio and ammunition. The radio crackled with Spanish voices coordinating positions and reporting status. Lobo 1 en posesión. Lobo 2, confirma visual en objetivo principal. Negativo, sin movimiento en el taller. Marcus's Spanish was rusty, but he understood enough. 8 men total. Call signs Lobo 1 through Lobo 8. They had the workshop surrounded but hadn't detected his escape. That gave him perhaps 10 more minutes before they realized their target had slipped the noose. He continued moving through the forest, staying parallel to the road that led to town. The second operative was positioned near the property's main gate, providing overwatch for the assault team. This one was more alert, scanning constantly and maintaining radio contact with his team leader. Marcus couldn't afford another close-quarters takedown. This position was too exposed, and the radio chatter indicated the team leader was expecting regular status updates. Instead, he circled around to approach the town from a different angle, leaving the operative in place but noting his position for future reference. His phone buzzed with a text message as he moved through the forest. The display showed Emma's name, and for a moment his heart stopped, thinking somehow they had already reached the school. But when he read the message, relief flooded through him. Dad, Mrs. Patterson says yes to the porch steps and she'll pay extra if you can start this weekend. Also, Mr. Kim wants to know if you can build him a bookshelf for his grandson's room. You're going to be so busy, even in the middle of what might be his final operation. Emma was still thinking about his business, still trying to help him succeed in the civilian life he had built for them. The message was so perfectly normal, so innocently optimistic, that it nearly broke his heart. Marcus typed back quickly. Thanks, sweetheart. Stay in school today and listen to Mrs. Sire. Rodriguez. I love you. The response came back immediately. Love you too, Dad. Are you feeling okay?
You sound worried.
Even through text messages, his 8-year-old daughter could read his emotional state better than most adults. Emma had always been perceptive, but 3 years of being his only family had made her especially attuned to his moods. She could tell when he was having nightmares about his military service, when he was stressed about money, when he was missing her mother. Just thinking about how proud I am of you. Be good for Mrs. Alb. Rodriguez. Marcus turned off his phone to preserve battery and continued toward town. The forest gave way to residential neighborhoods, and he had to be more careful about concealment. Pine Ridge's morning routine was in full swing. People heading to work, retirees walking their dogs, children playing in yards before school started. It was exactly the kind of peaceful domestic scene he had dreamed about during his military years when he was living in barracks and safe houses around the world.
Now it represented everything he stood to lose, and everything the people hunting him were willing to destroy to get their revenge.
Marcus reached the edge of Pine Ridge Elementary's property and studied the school building through his binoculars. The red brick structure looked exactly as it had when he dropped Emma off hundreds of times over the past 3 years. But now he analyzed it with tactical eyes. Single-story construction, multiple exits, windows that could provide escape routes but also represented vulnerabilities. The playground equipment could provide cover, but it could also create obstacles if they needed to move quickly. He spotted Sheriff Martinez's patrol car in the school parking lot and felt a moment of relief. Tom had responded to his call and was taking the threat seriously. The sheriff was a good man, and while he wasn't equipped for military-style combat, his presence meant Emma had at least some protection. Marcus circled around to the school's main entrance, staying low and using parked cars for concealment. He needed to get inside, collect Emma, and reach his vehicle without being detected by the assault team. Once they realized he was no longer at his workshop, they would expand their search pattern, and the school would be an obvious place to look.
The main office was located just inside the front entrance, and through the glass doors Marcus could see Sarah, the secretary, sitting at her desk looking unusually tense. She kept glancing at the phone and checking the clock, clearly worried about his earlier call. Marcus approached the entrance carefully, scanning for any signs of surveillance or hostile activity. The parking lot appeared normal, but he noticed a white van parked across the street that hadn't been there when Emma arrived for school.
The van's windows were tinted, and its position provided a clear view of the school's main entrance. His radio crackled with Spanish voices, and Marcus realized with growing alarm that the assault team had discovered his escape from the workshop. Their tone was becoming more urgent, and he caught fragments about expanding the search pattern and checking objetivos secundarios, secondary targets. Emma was no longer just in potential danger. She was an active target. Marcus keyed the radio and spoke in accented Spanish, hoping to buy precious minutes by misdirecting the search.
Lobo cinco aquí. Tengo movimiento en el sector norte.
The radio chattered with requests for confirmation and orders to reposition. Marcus had just told them he spotted movement in the north sector, which should draw at least some of the team away from town. But the deception wouldn't hold for long. Once they tried to confirm his fake sighting, they would realize someone was using their communications against them. He had perhaps 5 minutes to get Emma and reach his extraction point before all hell broke loose in Pine Ridge. Marcus checked his weapon one final time and approached the school entrance. The man who had spent 3 years building furniture and coaching Little League was gone completely now, replaced by the operator who had earned the name Ghost in the deadliest places on Earth. The peaceful morning in Pine Ridge was about to become a battlefield, and Marcus Sullivan was going to remind some very dangerous people why they used to whisper his name in the dark. Marcus entered Pine Ridge Elementary through the main entrance, moving with purposeful calm despite the tactical urgency screaming in his mind. The familiar smell of school disinfectant and children's lunches hit him immediately, a stark contrast to the adrenaline and danger that had defined his morning. Sarah looked up from her desk, her face showing visible relief when she recognized him.
Marcus, thank goodness. I've been so worried since your call. Sheriff Martinez is here too. He's in the principal's office with Mr. Anderson discussing security procedures.
Where's Emma right now? Marcus asked, scanning the hallway while keeping his voice calm and normal. Math class. Room 12. Should I call her down to the office? Please, tell her I need to pick her up for a doctor's appointment. The lie came easily, necessary to avoid panic among the school staff and other children.
Also, has anyone else asked about Emma today? Any visitors or unusual phone calls? Sarah's expression grew more concerned.
No, nothing like that. But Marcus, you're really frightening me. What kind of danger are we talking about? Before Marcus could answer, Sheriff Martinez emerged from the principal's office, his expression grim. Tom Martinez was 58 years old, gray-haired, and carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had handled every kind of trouble a small mountain town could produce. But the look in his eyes told Marcus that he understood this situation was beyond his normal experience. Marcus, I've been trying to reach you. We've got a situation developing. I sent Deputy Carson to check on those vehicles you reported, and he hasn't responded to radio contact for the past 20 minutes. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. Where did you send him? To investigate the SUV parked near your property. His last transmission was that he was approaching the vehicle to make contact. 20-year-old Deputy Carson, fresh out of the police academy and eager to prove himself, had just walked into a trap set by professional killers.
Marcus closed his eyes briefly, adding another name to the list of people whose lives were in danger because of his past.
Tom, we need to evacuate the school immediately.
These people aren't local criminals or angry tourists. They're military-trained assassins, and they're here specifically for me and Emma. Sheriff Martinez studied Marcus's face, taking in the tactical vest partially concealed under his jacket and the controlled intensity in his voice. You're not just a carpenter, are you? 20 years Navy SEALs, retired 3 years ago. The people hunting us are connected to my last mission. They've already taken out your deputy, and they won't hesitate to hurt innocent people to get to me. The sheriff's hand instinctively moved toward his service weapon. Jesus Christ, Marcus. How many are we dealing with? 8 confirmed hostiles, possibly more in reserve. Professional equipment, coordinated tactics, and a 3-year grudge that brought them across international borders to find me. The intercom crackled to life. Mr. D. Sullivan, to the main office, please. Emma Sullivan, to the main office. Sarah had followed his request, but Marcus could hear the tremor in her voice as she made the announcement. Through the office windows he could see children in the hallways, changing classes and laughing with their friends, completely unaware that their peaceful morning was about to become a nightmare.
Tom, I need you to start evacuation procedures immediately. Don't use the standard fire alarm. That will create panic and chaos.
Get on the intercom and announce a surprise early dismissal due to a gas leak or something similar. Get these kids out of here in an orderly fashion. Where, if these people have the town surrounded? Marcus pulled out a school map from Sarah's desk and studied the layout. The old mining road behind the school connects to Highway 9 about 3 miles north. It's rough terrain, but buses can navigate it. Get everyone out that way and keep them moving until you reach the state police checkpoint at Miller's Crossing. Sheriff Martinez nodded and moved toward the principal's office to coordinate the evacuation.
Marcus could hear him explaining the situation to Principal Anderson in urgent, quiet tones. Within minutes, the intercom announced that all students should prepare for an early dismissal due to an emergency gas leak, and teachers should begin moving their classes toward the rear parking lot.
Emma appeared in the office doorway, her backpack slung over her shoulder and a concerned expression on her young face. She looked between Marcus and Sarah, immediately sensing that something was very wrong, despite the adults' attempts to appear calm.
Dad, what's happening? Everyone's saying we have to leave school because of a gas leak, but I don't smell anything weird.
Marcus knelt down to her eye level, taking her small hands in his calloused ones. Emma, I need you to listen very carefully. Some bad people are looking for me because of my old job before you were born. We need to leave town for a while until it's safe to come back. Emma's blue eyes grew wide, but she didn't cry or panic. Instead, she studied his face with the same serious expression she used when working on difficult homework problems.
Is it like the movies where the good guys have to run away from the bad guys? Something like that, sweetheart.
But remember what I always told you about scary situations? Take deep breaths, stay calm, and listen to you because you'll always keep me safe. Marcus felt his heart break a little at her complete trust in him. That's exactly right. Now, I need you to go with Sheriff Martinez and the other children to a safe place.
I'll meet you there as soon as I can. Emma shook her head immediately.
No.
If bad people are after you, then I want to stay with you. We're a team, remember? It was exactly what Marcus had feared she would say.
Emma had lost her mother when she was 5, and since then she had clung to the idea that she and her father were partners who faced everything together. The thought of being separated from him, especially during danger, terrified her more than any external threat. Emma, the safest thing for you is to go with Sheriff Martinez. These people want to hurt me, but they'll leave you alone if you're not with me. Even as he said it, Marcus knew he was lying. The cartel members hunting him weren't known for their restraint or mercy. If they captured Emma, they would use her as leverage to force him into the open, and then they would kill her anyway to complete their revenge. The radio in Marcus's pocket crackled with urgent Spanish voices. The deception about movement in the north sector had been discovered, and the assault team was regrouping worse. They were reporting actividad en el objetivo secundario, activity at the secondary target. They had identified the school. Tom, Marcus called out urgently. How long for full evacuation? Sheriff Martinez appeared in the doorway, his face grim. 15 minutes minimum. We've got 300 kids and limited bus capacity. Marcus looked out the office windows and felt his blood run cold. The white van across the street had moved closer to the school entrance, and he could see armed figures moving through the tree line that bordered the playground. They had perhaps 5 minutes before the school was completely surrounded. Change of plans. We can't wait for full evacuation. Marcus scooped Emma into his arms, ignoring her protests. Tom, get on your radio and call for every available unit from surrounding counties. Tell them we have a terrorist attack in progress and need immediate backup.
Marcus, where are you going? To draw them away from the school. If they want me, they can follow me. But I'm not letting them turn this place into a battleground with kids inside.
Emma wrapped her arms around his neck as he carried her toward the rear exit. Dad, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart. But remember what I taught you about being brave? Brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing, even when you're scared. That's my girl. Marcus kicked open the rear exit and immediately came under fire. Bullets shattered the glass door behind them as he dove to the right, using a concrete planter for cover while clutching Emma tightly against his chest. The shots came from the tree line, indicating the assault team had moved faster than he anticipated. Stay down, baby. Don't look up no matter what you hear. Marcus drew his sidearm and returned fire, sending precise shots toward the muzzle flashes in the trees. He wasn't trying to hit anyone, at this distance with a pistol while protecting Emma.
Accuracy was secondary to suppression. He needed to keep their heads down long enough to reach his vehicle. His truck was parked in the staff lot, about 30 yards away, across open ground. It was modified with armor plating and bulletproof glass. At the time, Emma had teased him about being overly cautious. Now those precautions might save both their lives.
Emma, when I count to 3, we're going to run to Daddy's truck. Stay low, hold tight to my neck, and don't let go no matter what happens. Okay, Daddy. 1, 2, 3.
Marcus sprinted across the parking lot, using parked cars for concealment while carrying Emma. More gunfire erupted from multiple positions, confirming that the school was now surrounded. Bullets sparked off concrete and shattered car windows around them, but Marcus's zigzag pattern and use of cover prevented accurate shots.
He reached his truck and yanked open the driver's door, practically throwing Emma into the passenger seat before diving in after her. The engine roared to life just as bullets began striking the armored windshield, creating spiderweb patterns in the ballistic glass.
Put on your seatbelt, baby. This is going to be a rough ride.
Marcus threw the truck in reverse and punched the accelerator, using the vehicle's weight and power to smash through the wooden fence that surrounded the school's rear parking area. The truck bounced violently over rough terrain and Emma gripped her seatbelt with white knuckles, but she didn't scream or cry. Behind them, the assault team was scrambling to pursue, but their SUVs were positioned to prevent escape via normal roads. Marcus's route through the forest and abandoned mining trails would force them to reposition, buying precious time to reach his extraction point. The truck's radio crackled with emergency chatter as Sheriff Martinez coordinated the school evacuation and called for backup from state police. Marcus could hear the strain in the older man's voice as he tried to manage a situation that had spiraled far beyond anything in his experience. All units, this is Pine Ridge Central. We have multiple armed suspects attacking the elementary school. Shots fired, civilian casualties possible. Request immediate assistance from all available agencies.
Marcus grabbed his radio. Tom, this is Marcus. I'm drawing them away from the school.
Continue evacuation procedures and establish a perimeter. These people will follow me. They want me alive for their revenge.
Marcus, there are kids still in that building. I know, but as long as I'm moving, they'll chase me instead of focusing on the school.
Get those children to safety.
Emma looked over at him with wide blue eyes, her small hands gripping the dashboard as the truck bounced over fallen logs and rocky terrain.
Daddy, are the bad people going to hurt our friends at school? No, sweetheart. Sheriff Martinez and all the teachers are going to keep everyone safe.
And we're going to lead the bad people far away from town so they can't hurt anyone. Are we going to be okay? Marcus reached over and squeezed her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against her small palm.
Do you remember what I promised you the day we moved to Pine Ridge?
You said you would always protect me no matter what. And I meant every word. We're going to be fine, Emma.
I promise. As if to contradict his words, the rear windshield exploded inward as a high-powered rifle round found its mark. The truck's armor had stopped the bullet, but the message was clear. The assault team was in pursuit, and they were closing distance. Marcus pushed the accelerator to the floor, sending the truck flying over rough terrain toward Highway 9 and the extraction point where military backup was supposedly waiting. Behind them, he could see dust clouds marking the position of pursuing vehicles, and ahead lay 15 miles of dangerous mountain roads where anything could happen. The peaceful carpenter, who had spent 3 years building furniture and coaching Little League, was gone completely now. In his place sat the Ghost, one of the most lethal operators the Navy SEALs had ever produced, fighting not for country or mission objectives, but for the life of the 8-year-old girl who meant more to him than his own existence. The real battle was just beginning. The armored truck bounced violently over the abandoned mining road as Marcus pushed the vehicle to its limits. Behind them, dust clouds marked the positions of at least 2 pursuing SUVs, their engines roaring as they struggled to match his pace over the rough terrain. Emma sat in the passenger seat, her seatbelt tight and her small hands gripping the door handle. But her face showed determination rather than terror. "Daddy, there's smoke coming from the engine," she observed with the matter-of-fact tone she used when pointing out problems with his carpentry projects. Marcus glanced at the temperature gauge and cursed silently. The truck's cooling system had taken damage during their escape, probably from debris or a lucky shot from the assault team. They had maybe 10 more minutes of hard driving before the engine would overheat completely. "We're almost to the highway, sweetheart. Just a little bit further." The radio crackled with updates from Sheriff Martinez. "All students evacuated safely. Repeat, all children are secure and moving to Rally Point Alpha. Marcus, what's your status?" 2 vehicles in pursuit, engine damage, but we're still mobile. ETA to extraction point is 8 minutes. Be advised, we've lost contact with Deputy Carson. And Marcus,
We found blood at his patrol car. Marcus felt rage build in his chest alongside the tactical calculations running through his mind. Deputy Carson was barely older than Marcus had been when he first deployed with the SEALs, a young man who had joined the sheriff's department because he wanted to help his community. Now he was probably dead because trained killers had come to a peaceful mountain town seeking revenge against a ghost from a war most people had forgotten. The truck crested a hill and Marcus could see Highway 9 stretching out ahead, the smooth asphalt promising escape from the rough terrain that had been slowly destroying his vehicle. But his relief was short-lived. A third SUV was positioned at the intersection, blocking their access to the highway and completing the tactical trap he should have anticipated. "Contact front," Marcus muttered, automatically falling back into military terminology as he processed the new threat.
"What does that mean?" Emma asked, following her father's gaze toward the roadblock ahead. "It means the bad people are trying to stop us from reaching the road. But don't worry, Daddy has dealt with situations like this before."
The pursuing vehicles were gaining ground rapidly now that Marcus had been forced to slow down to navigate the intersection ahead.
In less than 2 minutes, he would be caught in a crossfire between the roadblock and the pursuit team. Classical military tactics dictated that he should find defensible terrain and prepare for a last stand, but Emma's presence changed every calculation.
Marcus grabbed his satellite phone and speed-dialed Bill Reynolds. The call connected immediately. "Ghost, we're tracking your position. Military assets are inbound but still 20 minutes out. Bill, I'm about to be trapped in a kill zone with my daughter. I need immediate close air support or this is going to end badly. We don't have anything in the air over your position."
Local law enforcement is responding, but they're not equipped for this kind of fight. Marcus studied the terrain around the intersection, his tactical mind automatically identifying cover positions, fields of fire, and potential escape routes. There was an old ranger station about 200 yards from the highway, built of stone and positioned on elevated ground with good sight lines in all directions. If he could reach it, he might be able to hold off the assault team long enough for backup to arrive. "Emma, I need you to listen very carefully. In about 30 seconds, we're going to leave the truck and run to that stone building you can see up on the hill. When I tell you to run, you go as fast as you can and don't look back, no matter what you hear behind you." Emma studied the ranger station with the same analytical expression she used when solving math problems.
"It looks like a fort. Will it keep the bad people out?" "For a while, and by then Sheriff Martinez will be here with lots of help." Marcus checked his ammunition and confirmed his radio was set to the emergency frequency local law enforcement would be monitoring.
He had perhaps 40 rounds total between his pistol and the ammunition he had taken from the first operative. Against 8 trained killers with automatic weapons, it wasn't much, but he had done more with less in places like Fallujah and Helmand Province. The truck reached the intersection, and Marcus immediately saw the tactical situation was even worse than he had anticipated. The roadblock SUV contained at least 3 armed men, and they had already established firing positions using the vehicle as cover. The 2 pursuing vehicles were less than 100 yards behind him and closing fast. Marcus yanked the steering wheel hard to the right and gunned the engine toward the ranger station.
The truck's wounded engine protested with grinding sounds and clouds of steam, but it had enough power left for one final sprint across open ground. Gunfire erupted from multiple positions as the assault team realized his intention.
Bullets struck the truck's armor and shattered the remaining windows, but Marcus kept the accelerator pressed to the floor while shielding Emma with his body. The ranger station grew larger ahead of them, promising at least temporary safety.
They reached the building just as the engine finally ceased completely, steam and smoke pouring from under the hood. Marcus grabbed Emma and his gear, then kicked open the passenger door and sprinted toward the stone structure while bullets whined overhead. The ranger station's heavy wooden door was locked, but Marcus's shoulder charge splintered the frame and sent them tumbling inside. The interior was dusty and abandoned, but the thick stone walls and small windows made it exactly what he needed. A defensive position that would force the assault team to approach across open ground. "Emma, I need you to go to the back corner and stay as low as possible. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe." "What about you, Daddy?" Marcus was already moving to the windows, using his knife to clear away boards and debris that blocked his view of the approaching threats.
"Bad people can't get inside." Emma crawled to the corner as instructed, but she continued watching her father with wide eyes. She had never seen him like this, moving with fluid precision, checking weapons and ammunition with mechanical efficiency. His entire demeanor transformed into something harder and more dangerous than the gentle carpenter who read her bedtime stories.
The radio crackled with Sheriff Martinez's voice. "Marcus, we have your position.
State police units are en route TET 2.0. Tom, tell them to approach from the north. The assault team has vehicles positioned on the south side of the highway, and they're equipped with military-grade weapons."
"Understood.
"Can you hold position for 12 minutes? Marcus counted muzzle flashes from the tree line and estimated at least 6 hostiles moving to surround the ranger station. I'll hold as long as necessary. The first coordinated assault came within minutes.
3 men approached from the front while 2 more flanked around the sides, using suppressive fire to mask their movement. Marcus waited until they were committed to their approach, then began picking them off with precise shots through the narrow windows.
His first target dropped immediately. Center mass shot at 80 yards with a pistol, the kind of marksmanship that had earned him recognition as one of the Navy's best shooters. The second operative dove for cover behind a fallen log, but Marcus had already shifted position to a different window and put 2 rounds into the man's exposed shoulder. The assault team's commander was shouting orders in Spanish, coordinating a more cautious approach now that he realized they were facing serious opposition. Marcus caught fragments of the radio chatter and understood they were calling for reinforcements. Apparently 8 men hadn't been considered sufficient to handle 1 retired SEAL.
Emma, are you okay back there? Yes, Daddy, but I'm scared.
Why do these people want to hurt us? Marcus reloaded his weapon while scanning for the next wave of attackers. How could he explain to an 8-year-old that some men held grudges that transcended borders and years? That violence sometimes followed people no matter how far they ran or how completely they tried to change their lives.
Sometimes when people do bad things, they blame other people instead of taking responsibility. These men are angry about things that happened a long time ago, before you were even born.
But you're not a bad person, Daddy. You help people. You built Bits, Henderson's table, and you coach baseball, and you make the best pancakes in the whole world. Despite everything, Marcus smiled. Thank you, sweetheart.
That means more to me than you know. The second assault was more sophisticated, coordinated suppressive fire from multiple positions while 2 operatives attempted to breach the ranger station's rear wall using shaped charges.
Marcus heard them planting the explosive device and immediately grabbed Emma, carrying her to the far side of the building just as the charge detonated. The explosion blew a hole in the stone wall and filled the interior with dust and debris, but the building's structure held.
Through the gap, Marcus could see armed figures preparing to enter, and he met them with concentrated fire that drove them back outside. But the tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly.
The assault team had him surrounded. They had superior numbers and firepower, and his ammunition was running dangerously low. Worse, they seemed willing to accept casualties to complete their mission, the mark of fanatics rather than professional soldiers.
Marcus's radio crackled with a new voice, speaking accented English. Mr. Sullivan, this is Colonel Eduardo Vega, formerly of the Colombian National Police, currently representing certain business interests you damaged 3 years ago. The voice was calm, educated, and absolutely cold. Marcus recognized the type. Intelligent, ruthless, and completely committed to his mission regardless of cost.
I have a proposition for you, Mr. Sullivan.
Surrender yourself and the child, and I guarantee your deaths will be quick and clean. Continue this resistance, and I will ensure your daughter suffers extensively before she dies.
Marcus keyed his radio. Colonel Vega, this is Ghost. I have a counterproposal. Take your men and leave Pine Ridge immediately, and I won't kill every last one of you.
Vega's laughter was genuinely amused.
The famous Ghost, still arrogant even when surrounded and outgunned. Do you really think one man can stand against my team?
I don't think, Colonel.
I know. The radio went silent, and Marcus could see movement in the tree line as Vega repositioned his remaining operatives for what would probably be the final assault. Through his binoculars, he counted 5 men still active, which meant he had eliminated at least 3 during the previous attacks. Emma crawled over to him, staying low as he had taught her.
Daddy, I can hear helicopters.
Marcus paused his tactical assessment and listened carefully. In the distance, barely audible over the sound of wind through the trees, he could hear the distinctive thrum of rotor blades approaching from the north. Tom, this is Marcus. Do you have air support inbound? Negative on air support, but we've got something better.
Marcus, you need to get Emma down and stay away from the windows, right now.
Before Marcus could ask for clarification, the morning sky erupted with the thunder of jet engines passing overhead at low altitude. The sound was so loud it shook dust from the ranger station's rafters and set Emma's ears ringing, but to Marcus it was the most beautiful sound in the world.
F-18 Super Hornets probably launched from the carrier group operating off the California coast, making a show of forced pass over the combat zone. The message to Colonel Vega and his assault team was unmistakable. The United States military had arrived, and the odds had just shifted dramatically.
Marcus's satellite phone rang immediately. Ghost, this is Admiral Sarah Chen, Pacific Fleet Operations. Are you and your daughter secure? Secure for now, Admiral, but
We're still surrounded by hostiles. Not for much longer.
I have a Marine Force reconnaissance team inserting via helicopter in approximately 3 minutes, and those jets you just saw are armed and ready to provide close air support if necessary. Marcus looked out the window and saw Colonel Vega's remaining operatives beginning to withdraw toward their vehicles, finally understanding that their mission had become impossible.
Whatever resources they possessed, they couldn't fight the entire United States military on American soil. Emma, the good guys are here.
It's almost over. Emma crawled over to the window and watched as military helicopters appeared on the horizon, their rotors beating the air like mechanical thunder.
Are those the people who worked with you before? Different people, but the same team. They're here to make sure we're safe. The next few minutes passed with surreal calm as the assault team completed their withdrawal and military vehicles surrounded the ranger station. Marcus heard Colonel Vega's voice one final time on the radio, promising that this wasn't over, that the ghost would never truly be safe no matter where he ran.
But Marcus wasn't running anymore. As he held Emma close and listened to Marine officers approaching the ranger station, he realized that 3 years of hiding had finally come to an end.
The past had caught up with him, tried to destroy everything he had built, then failed. Pine Ridge was his home, Emma was his family, and some things were worth fighting for regardless of the cost. The last stand was over. Now came the harder part, rebuilding a life that would never again be defined by fear.
6 months later, Marcus Sullivan stood in his workshop running his hands over the smooth surface of a rocking chair he was building for Emma's 9th birthday. The morning sunlight streamed through windows that had been repaired and reinforced, casting familiar patterns across workbenches that held the tools of his chosen trade.
The workshop looked much the same as it had before the events that changed everything, but the man working in it had been transformed in ways both subtle and profound. The sound of footsteps on gravel announced a visitor, and Marcus looked up to see Admiral Sarah Chen approaching the workshop. She wore civilian clothes now, jeans and a simple blouse, but her bearing still carried the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to command. Behind her walked Bill Reynolds, Marcus's former commanding officer, carrying a folder that Marcus suspected contained official paperwork.
"Morning, Marcus," Admiral Chen said as she entered the workshop. "How are you settling back into civilian life?" Marcus set down his plane and wiped his hands on his work apron.
The question was more complex than it appeared. After the events at Pine Ridge, Marcus had spent 6 weeks debriefing with various military and intelligence agencies, providing details about the cartel's organization and helping to coordinate an international operation that dismantled what remained of their network.
Colonel Vega and his surviving operatives had been captured in Mexico 2 months ago, ending the threat that had haunted Marcus's family, but returning to the peaceful rhythm of small-town life hadn't been as simple as resuming his carpentry work and Emma's school routine.
The violence had changed both of them in ways they were still discovering. "We're adapting," Marcus said honestly.
"Emma's been having some nightmares, but the counselor says that's normal given what she experienced. She's remarkably resilient, but she understands now that the world can be dangerous in ways she never imagined."
"And you?" Bill asked, studying his former operator with the keen eyes of someone who had spent decades evaluating men under stress. Marcus considered the question carefully.
I thought I could completely leave that life behind, become just another small-town carpenter with no connection to the military. But these past months have taught me that the skills and instincts don't just disappear.
Maybe they're not supposed to. Admiral Chen nodded as if she had expected this answer.
"That brings us to why we're here. The Department of Defense has been discussing your situation at the highest levels.
What happened in Pine Ridge demonstrated that there are ongoing threats to retired special operations personnel, and current security protocols are inadequate to protect families." "You want me to come back?" Marcus said.
It wasn't a question. Not exactly. Bill opened the folder and pulled out several documents.
"We want you to help create something new, a program to protect retired operators and their families while utilizing their skills in ways that serve national interests, without requiring full active duty status."
Marcus examined the papers, recognizing the official seals and classifications that had once been routine parts of his military life. The proposed program would establish regional security consultants, retired special operations personnel who maintained their civilian lives while providing expertise to local law enforcement and federal agencies when situations required their unique skill sets.
"You'd still live here in Pine Ridge, still run your carpentry business, still coach Emma's softball team," Admiral Chen explained. "But you'd also be available for consultation when local authorities encounter threats beyond their capabilities."
Think of it as part-time work for people who can't really retire completely. The workshop door opened, and Emma entered, carrying a plate of sandwiches and 2 glasses of lemonade. At 9 years old, she had grown noticeably in the past 6 months.
But the real change was in her awareness and maturity.
The events of that terrible morning had forced her to grow up faster than any child should, but they had also revealed the strength and resilience that made Marcus incredibly proud. "Hi, Admiral Chen."
"Hi, Mr. Reynolds," Emma said politely, setting the food on Marcus's workbench.
"Dad, Mrs. Chen wanted me to bring you lunch and remind you that my science fair project is due next week." "What's your project about this year?" Admiral Chen asked with genuine interest.
Emma's eyes lit up. "I'm building a perimeter security system using motion sensors and wireless cameras.
Dad's been helping me with the electronics, and Sheriff Martinez let me test it at the police station." Bill Reynolds looked amused.
Most kids your age are building volcanoes or growing plants. That stuff's okay, I guess," Emma said with the casual dismissal of a child discussing inferior toys. "But Dad taught me that it's better to build things that actually help people stay safe." After Emma returned to the house, Marcus continued studying the official documents.
The program would provide substantial resources, advanced security systems for his property, direct communication links to federal agencies, and backup support when situations exceeded local capabilities. In return, he would serve as a regional consultant, bringing his expertise to bear on problems that required someone who understood violence at the highest levels.
"What about Emma's safety?" Marcus asked. "The whole reason I retired was to give her a normal life, away from the dangers of my military career."
"The security protocols would be comprehensive," Admiral Chen assured him.
Advanced warning systems, rapid response teams, and most importantly, the knowledge that potential threats would be identified and neutralized before they could reach Pine Ridge. Marcus walked to the window that faced toward town, looking out over the community that had become his family's home.
Pine Ridge had rallied around them in the aftermath of the attack. Sheriff Martinez had been promoted and given additional training and resources. Deputy Carson had survived his injuries and returned to duty with a deeper understanding of the complexities of modern law enforcement. The school had upgraded its security systems, but more importantly, the entire community had learned that safety required vigilance and preparation.
"There's something else," Bill said quietly. "We recovered intelligence during the Vega operation that indicates other cartels and terrorist organizations have been conducting similar tracking operations against retired personnel."
"You weren't the only target, Marcus. There are others out there facing the same threats you dealt with."
The implication was clear. Marcus could use his experience to help protect not just his own family but other veterans who had served their country and deserved to live peacefully with their loved ones.
The carpentry business would continue. He genuinely enjoyed the work and took pride in creating beautiful, lasting pieces with his hands. But he could also serve in a different capacity, one that utilized skills forged in the crucible of combat to protect the innocent.
"I need to discuss this with Emma," Marcus said finally. "She deserves to understand what this would mean for our lives." "Of course," Admiral Chen agreed.
"Take all the time you need. The program won't be implemented for several months anyway."
After the visitors left, Marcus found Emma in the kitchen working on her homework while Mrs. Chen prepared dinner.
The older woman had become even more of a family member in recent months, her presence providing stability and normalcy that both Marcus and Emma needed during their recovery period. "Emma, can we talk for a few minutes?" They sat together on the front porch, looking out over the valley that had become their sanctuary. The late afternoon light painted the mountains in shades of gold and purple, and the air carried the clean scent of pine trees and upcoming snow. "The people who visited today want me to help other families stay safe from bad people," Marcus explained carefully.
"It would mean sometimes I'd have to travel to help police departments in other places, but mostly I'd still be here building furniture and coaching your softball team." Emma considered this with the serious expression that had become more frequent since their ordeal.
"Would it be dangerous like before?" "Not like before," Marcus assured her. "I wouldn't be fighting or doing the kinds of missions I used to do. I'd be more like a teacher, showing other people how to stay safe and protect their communities."
"And you'd still be my dad first before anything else?"
"Always. Being your dad is the most important job I'll ever have." Emma nodded slowly. "I think you should do it. When those bad people came here, lots of our friends were scared. If you can help stop that from happening to other kids, then it's the right thing to do."
Marcus felt a surge of pride at his daughter's mature understanding of duty and service. "Are you sure? It would mean some changes to our routine, and there might be times when I have to be away for a few days." "Dad, I learned something important that day at school." Emma's voice carried a wisdom that still surprised him. "I learned that you can't hide from scary things forever. And sometimes the only way to feel really safe is to help make the world safer for everyone."
That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus sat in his workshop surrounded by the projects that represented his civilian life. The rocking chair for Emma's birthday was nearly complete, carved with intricate designs that told the story of their time in Pine Ridge.
A commissioned dining set for the town's new restaurant occupied one corner while plans for a custom bookshelf covered his drafting table. This work brought him genuine satisfaction, the ability to create rather than destroy, to build rather than eliminate.
But he had learned that running from his past hadn't been the answer. The skills and instincts that made him effective as a special operator were part of who he was, and perhaps the real challenge wasn't to suppress them but to channel them toward protecting the life and community he valued most.
Marcus picked up his satellite phone and dialed Admiral Chen's direct number. "Admiral, this is Marcus Sullivan. I've discussed the proposal with Emma, and we've made our decision. And I accept, with one condition. Pine Ridge remains our primary residence, and Emma's safety takes priority over any mission requirements." "Understood and agreed. Welcome to the team, Marcus. I think you'll find this arrangement allows you to serve your country while being the father Emma needs."
After ending the call, Marcus returned to work on the rocking chair, using tools that felt natural in his hands to shape wood into something beautiful and lasting. Outside, the mountain wind carried the sounds of a peaceful evening. Crickets chirping, a dog barking in the distance, the faint hum of traffic on the highway that connected Pine Ridge to the larger world.
For the first time since hanging up his uniform 3 years ago, Marcus felt completely at peace with his choices. He was no longer running from his past, or trying to completely abandon the skills that defined him.
Instead, he was integrating all aspects of his identity, father, craftsman, protector, into a life that honored both his service to country and his devotion to family. The ghost would never again emerge for missions of violence and elimination. But when communities faced threats beyond their capabilities, when families needed protection from forces too dangerous for local law enforcement to handle alone, Marcus Sullivan would be ready to serve in whatever capacity was needed. The carpenter's workshop in Pine Ridge, Colorado, would continue producing beautiful furniture and teaching an 8-year-old girl about the satisfaction of building things with her hands.
But it would also serve as headquarters for a new kind of mission, one dedicated to ensuring that other families could live with the same peace and security that Marcus and Emma had fought so hard to preserve. As he put the finishing touches on Emma's birthday present, Marcus smiled at the thought of her reaction when she saw the rocking chair.
She would probably immediately start planning where to place it in her room and which stuffed animals would get to sit in it first. The normalcy of such concerns after everything they had endured felt like the greatest victory of all.
Pine Ridge slept peacefully around them, protected now not just by distance and isolation, but by the knowledge that when evil came calling, there were still people willing to stand against it. Marcus Sullivan, father and craftsman, guardian and protector, had found his place in a world that needed all of his skills and none of his compromises.
The last stand had become a new beginning, and the future stretched ahead with promise and purpose.